Maintaining NATO's technological edge is fundamental for our alliance and its ability to ensure the security of our nearly 1 billion citizens. New technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, or biotechnologies will fundamentally change the way we defend ourselves and how we think about our security, and we are already doing so. Let me give you some examples. The NATO Intelligence Fusion Center is using artificial intelligence to support its imagery analysis. By automating this analysis, the NIFC could increase its capacity to cover additional airfields, equivalent to an 1100% increase in staffing. AI will significantly enhance our situational awareness and decision-making. Logistical supply is vulnerable, especially on the battlefield, and with autonomous technologies, we will be able to ensure logistical support to our warfighters on the front line through small autonomous vehicles, and this will ultimately save lives. And advances in quantum technologies, and in particular in quantum sensing, will enable precise navigation even in GPS-denied environments. This will be a major step forward in ensuring our ability direction and preparing them better for their deployments. Of course, there are many more applications, technologies, and technology combinations. But already looking at these examples, it becomes clear that whoever will be able to fully capitalize on these technologies will achieve a competitive advantage over others. Our adversaries also recognize the revolutionary nature of these new technologies. Russia, and especially China, have stepped up their efforts and are significantly investing in the development of these technologies, while driving forward their adoption at speed. These developments justify a sense of urgency. As NATO, we will leverage emerging and disruptive technologies to maintain our technological edge, ensure our military superiority, and ultimately strengthen our defense and deterrence. Looking at the innovation ecosystems across the alliance and in our partner countries, I'm not too worried about the development of these emerging and disruptive technologies. We can count on vibrant startups, world-class universities, and creative small and medium enterprises. 9 of the top 10 universities and 8 out of the top 10 startup accelerators are located on Allied territory. The challenge is therefore not the development, it's the speed of adoption of these technologies that will allow us to maintain our technological edge over our competitors and adversaries. Startups and small-medium enterprises operate in an agile and flexible way. To cooperate with these entities, we in the defense environment have to embrace agility and flexibility in our operating procedures. We recognize that our most innovative technologies are no longer developed by the government, but instead by our private sector and academia, and they are financed by the private sector for commercial purposes. Most of them are dual use, and we've allowed a gap to emerge between the government and these actors, and this has strategic implications, especially for our militaries. We are looking to help close that gap for transatlantic defense and security purposes. And this means establishing concrete mechanisms that will allow us to build a credible engagement with allied innovation ecosystems, startups, and academia. At the same time, licit and illicit technology transfers by our adversaries and competitors endanger our technological edge. And this means that we want to increase the protection of technological developments to make our ecosystems more resilient. From all of that, it becomes clear that well-financed, resilient, and protected allied civilian innovation ecosystems developing strategic dual-use applications are key to ensuring the technological edge of allied militaries and the security of allied publics. Embracing this rationale, the allied heads of state and government agreed during this recent meeting in the summer 2 exciting deliverables in the field of innovation. They agreed to launch the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, called Diana, a transatlantic innovation initiative to solve defense and security problems by connecting the private sector and academia with the military. And second, to establish the NATO Innovation Fund, a multinationally funded effort to provide venture financing to startups developing cutting-edge technologies with dual-use attributes. And today I would like to brief you on those both initiatives. And let me start with Diana. Diana will be a transatlantic innovation initiative with headquarters on each side of the Atlantic. It will be composed of 4 components. 1, it will leverage a network of allied test centers for emerging and disruptive technologies with defense applications to include AI, autonomy, and quantum. At these test centers, innovative private sector companies and academics and researchers can work alongside military end-user operators to engage in innovation challenges, develop concepts that could solve defense problem sets, and to test new technologies. Second, Diana will also include a network of sites to incubate and accelerate the growth and viability of deep tech startups working on dual-use technologies. We are aiming to launch a NATO accelerator program to introduce allied civilian startups to allied problem sets. And the aim of such a program will be to connect these innovative entities with allied procurement agencies. Diana is also about protecting technological developments, and therefore we will launch a trusted capital database, enabling allied startups to access trusted sources of capital. Finally, Diana will also house innovation advisory teams, and these teams will be the entry point for startups to Diana. They will deploy across the alliance to provide advice, not only to NATO entities, but also to allied private sector and academia. Separately, as mentioned, allies also agreed to launch a NATO Innovation Fund. And with the establishment of this fund, we are really leveraging allied best practices. The fund will provide venture financing to startups developing dual-use technologies with potential military applications. We are not looking to sideline private venture capital. On the contrary, this multinational fund will allow participating allies to put a spotlight on particularly promising technologies and to attract private venture capital. At the same time, we will have to establish trust with these entities, which might not always feel comfortable incorporating with the defense and security environment. And this is why NATO has put ethics at the center of its innovation efforts. Allies have the ambition to establish NATO as a thought leader when it comes down to the ethical use of new technologies in the defense environment. Over the past months, allies have been negotiating the very first NATO Principles of Responsible Use for Artificial Intelligence in Defense. And we will look at making these available to the public in October. We will define ethical approaches to all new technologies that we are facing. And by doing so, we aim to build trust between allies and between allied militaries and the allied innovation ecosystems. We are an alliance of democracies, and these principles reflect these democratic values. Ultimately, this is what differentiates us from our adversaries. But let us not forget that these principles are also about ensuring interoperability between our own forces. Beyond the principles of responsible use, it is clear that NATO will have to consider the impact of emerging and disruptive technologies throughout a number of other policy fields. To conclude my remarks, let me give you a couple of considerations that we are currently focusing on. Nearly all the technologies we are looking at are heavily reliant on abundant resources of quality data. I don't think I have to explain to anybody in this forum the importance of data as a strategic resource. For us, as a security and defense organization, we have to start thinking about how we collect, store, and share military data amongst ourselves. We want to make sure that allies have access to quality military data to train their application. And this is why allies are currently negotiating NATO's first data exploitation framework policy. Data sharing is crucial to success of NATO's wider innovation agenda. A second consideration: standards are becoming geopolitical tools. As it is the civilian private sector driving today's innovation, the power of standard setting is shifting towards civilian international standard setting bodies. We will want to make sure that the defense and security perspectives are being taken into account in these bodies. And finally, talent and human capital is key. We will be looking at recruiting and retaining the right people and foster technological awareness throughout our organization. Decision makers don't have to be technological literate, but we have to ensure that everybody understands the security and policy implications and opportunities that these technologies entail. With that, let me conclude my remarks. Maintaining the technological edge of our militaries is key to our effective deterrence and defense. We will need to get out of our comfort zones to get this process right. Adopting these technologies at the speed of relevance also means innovating our ways of doing business. We will have to engage with new actors from the private sector and academia and build trust. The good thing is that within NATO, we're not alone. We have 30 allies to share lessons learned with and to make sure that all of us are capable and able to capitalize on these opportunities the technologies offer. The experience of Central and Eastern European allies in building outstanding innovation ecosystems, for example in Estonia, Warsaw, or Prague, will play a key role in implementing these ambitious proposals over the next months. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for having me here today virtually, and I wish all of you interesting discussions. Thank you.